This is Jim Cornette, pro wrestling legend and administrator of JimCornette.com and the Jim Cornette Experience on MLW every week. And you are listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show and Angry Marks and all these people that are asking me all these questions that I'm answering with forthrightness and honesty.
Whether it be Eric Bischoff, whether it be Turner or Time Warner AOL, Vince Russo, David Arquette. Who killed WCW, Jim?
Go back to Jim Herd.
Jim Herd, yep.
See, he's so far, as Ole Anderson said to me one time, he said, Cornette, I used to think you were a dumb fuck, but so many other dumb fucks have come along that are worse and stupider than you are, you've moved up the ladder without doing anything. Vince Russo was more of a fucking cancer and a danger to wrestling because he had power to write these things, these stupid things that killed guys' careers and bad gimmicks and the phony shit and exposed everything. And Eric Bischoff spent money like a drunken fucking sailor because he got them to turn the fucking checkbook loose to him because he padded his resume where he convinced him that he served the second course to the Last Supper and had Jason Hervey write him a phony fucking letter saying that he wanted him for his production company. So they're like, oh, this is a TV guy. And all those other people had a hand in it. But when you think about it, they hired Jim Herd in 1988 when they first took over the company. And Jim Herd was there for the first 3 or 4, maybe it was 4 years. And they never turned a profit until 1997 when Bischoff signed away all of Vince's stars, and suddenly 8 years later they turned a fucking profit. But Jim Herd was responsible for taking the company. Like I said, we'd just done a sellout in Richmond, Virginia at the Coliseum, 12,000 people. We'd just done some big houses in Philadelphia and this and that place. Within a year, they were doing less than 1,000 people in Greensboro, one of the biggest cities per capita in the history of wrestling. Biggest drawing cities. He's the one for the Ding Dongs. He wanted to do the Hunchbacks. He ran off the Road Warriors. He ran off Flair. He ran Me and the Midnight Express off. My book goes into, available at JimCornette.com, great detail on Jim Herd and his inanity and his stupidity and the fact that he was impossible for anybody to work with and that everybody hated him. But when you think about it, he gave Vince McMahon a clear path, a clear field, unobstructed access to run the wrestling business the way he saw fit for 3 or 4 years there. And then they were suffering, WCW was suffering the damage that Herd had done by his mismanagement for a few more years after that. So Vince had all that time to take over, unobstructed, unchallenged by any reputable competition. Jim Herd was appointed to run the wrestling company because in his resume, he had once been a studio director at KPLR TV, where Sam Muchnick did his television program. And those were in the days when they didn't even smarten the directors up, especially not Sam Muchnick, who was as traditional as they came. So he was best friends with Jack Petrick, or actually their wives were best friends, and he'd been working at Pizza Hut in fucking St. Louis. And Jack Petrick said, oh, you got to come in here and run this wrestling company for me, because my wife tells me you'd be great. And seriously, I'm not making this shit up. And he ran the company for 4 years, and it never got off the fucking ground. So I agree with all of the people that you mentioned are warts on the fucking asshole of life. But go back and look for Jim Herd as the person who really lost the war for the NWA. And you don't need to go any further than that because that's the guy.